I'd like to call the annual board reorganization meeting to order. The meeting was properly posted and for an agenda, motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I got 11 first, Jim second.
All right. First order of business is consideration and action on the following. Entertain nominations for board president.
Hey, Tom, you gotta go back and vote for the adopt the agenda.
Oh, I apologize. All right. We have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Pease. And now consideration and action on the following. I would entertain motions for a nomination for board president.
I nominate Rick Pease.
We have nominations for Mr. Pease from Joanne. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? You have to ask that 3 times. This isn't working. Jim, my computer is not working, by the way. All right, I don't believe we need seconds for this, so thank you.
Oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on in my ears.
That was
You
like
hear all
deep-
that? It was a
That was probably me,
Oh.
so I apologize for that. I'm changing computers midstream. All right, I'd like to entertain a vote, or actually, you want to do both via paper?
No, if there's only one nomination, you can vote that way.
Okay, seeing there's only one nomination for president for Mr. Pease, I would like to signify all in favor by signifying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, then moving on, I'll take nomination. Oh, I got
Rick, could I ask a question? This is Kathy McCarthy. Should we continue to raise our hands?
Yes.
Or just say aye?
Yeah. As we vote now, I would like you to raise your hand and vote for aye. And then if I don't get a unanimous, we'll go also ask for nays. Okay, with that, we'll look for board nominations for vice president. Jeff?
I nominate Jim Bays.
Jim Bays? Also, when you nominate people, you don't need a second, just to remind you of that. So Jim Bays is nominated. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, all in favor for Jim Bays being the vice president, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes 9-0. Moving on to board clerk. Nominations for board clerk.
I'll nominate Kathy McCarthy.
Nomination is for Kathy McCarthy. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor for Kathy McCarthy as the board clerk, please raise your hands. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 9-0. Looking for nominations for board treasurer. Is there a nomination for board treasurer?
I nominate Joanne Sullivan.
Nominations for Joanne. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, all in favor for Joanne, please signify, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, passes 9-0. CISA 5 representative. I've done this for years, I'd like to continue it. Is there a nomination for CISA 5 then?
I'll nominate.
Thank you. Is there any nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. CISA 5 alternate representative. We've never had this before, Tom. Is this something new?
They recommend having an alternate as well.
Okay. Is there a nomination to be an alternate for CISA 5 representative? Go ahead, Lana.
I'll nominate Kathy McCarthy.
Okay.
I was sort of interested in that WASBA alternate delegate, to be honest. So I would nominate.
You can be both of them.
You're really
Just
a bad.
pointing that out to you. Are you declining the nomination?
I would like to nominate Lena Hamilton.
All right, Lena Hamilton. And you're not going to, you're going to decline that
I would
nomination?
decline.
Okay. Nomination for Lena Hamilton for CISA 5 alternate representative. Hearing that, is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor for Lena, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. WASBA delegate, Jim's been in for years. Is there a nomination for WASBA delegate?
I'll nominate.
Nominations for Jim Bays. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Jim Bays for WASBA delegate, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. And the last thing, WASBA alternate delegate.
I'll nominate Kathy.
Ted will nominate Kathy.
Thank you.
Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor for Kathy to being the WASBA alternate delegate, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, passes 9-0. All right, going on. Temporary repeal of policy 01673, public participation at board meetings. And I have a resolution for that, and it's whereas regular meeting on April 13, 20, the board approved to suspend that policy, and understood by the board that one of the primary reasons for doing so was the transition of virtual remote board meetings, which would make public participation more difficult and complicated. It was understood by the board that the suspension policy would consult a temporary repeal until such time as subject public participation would be revisited by the board under further consideration. Although the action was taken was to suspend the policy, the board was not aware of the limitations associated with the word suspending and suspension. The entitled board will temporarily repeal the policy 0167.3 for policy 1013.1 until further board consideration. So now, I move that, I'll actually make this motion, I move that policy 0167.3 be temporarily repealed until further board consideration, and that such motion to suspend at the prior board meeting be integrated per its intent to have been the first adoption of temporary repeal of policy 0167.3, such that its action constitutes the second action which brings about final approval of temporary repeal of the policy 0167.3 until further board consideration. I made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Joanne will second that. Discussion. Go ahead, Kathy.
Control D. Is there still an opportunity for the public to be able to participate in public comments?
Not right now, not through virtual meetings. If you want that resolution to be changed, we would actually have to go back and change our public comment policy in the very first place to add to that policy stating that we would have some way to turn in public comments to either myself or the administrator prior to the meeting. So if you would like public comments at the meeting, we would have to bring 0167.3 back to the policy committee and add a section that states that we would allow public comments to be read virtually And then that would have to go through its first and second readings and be then put into policy.
Kathy, I can help you on this also. We're really behind on policies, so I was just talking to Tom and Stacy that we're gonna have to do a policy committee meeting between now and the next board meeting. And we can put that at the top of the list if we want to put that back in there that way. And we can also waive that second reading, because second reading really is for people to actually comment on that. So if you would like to put that in there at that time, and then we'll just bring it to the board in June, we could do that.
I think it's important to have the public comments, and so I think that would be a great answer. Because this is a temporary repeal, but we don't know how long the
Right.
temporary repeal is going on. So if there would be an ability to have the public participate, if they have a comment that can be, and we have to put parameters, it has to be a certain length and it has to be submitted, but, and I know we talked about, we have to catch up on policy because we're behind on that, but I would like to propose we do that, make sure that we allow the public to have some participation.
Okay. If you notice in today's meeting, we actually have that verbiage in there, so they could have had public comment. If we could maybe put that into that policy from now, I think that might cover it. I'll have Tom and Stacy work on that, and then we'll get that meeting within about 2 weeks, I would think. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep. Is there any more comment? With that, I hear no more comments. The motion is made by me, seconded by Joanne, to resolve the temporary repeal of policy 0.67.3, public participation at board meetings. We'll start this vote with Joanne.
Yes.
Remember to Alt-D to mute, take you off mute so you can vote.
Control.
Ken?
Yes. I didn't do it.
Jim?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. It passes 9-0. Moving on, second reading of policy 0167.1, voting.
And that policy allows you to vote from a remote location in this particular time.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve that policy? Jim, I'm sorry, Jeff?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll
Jim?
second.
Motion made by Jeff, seconded by Jim to approve reading of policy 0167.1, voting. Discussion. Go ahead, Kathy.
I just wanted to make sure, does this also include if we have to go into closed session? The reason being is
Yes,
I learned that county board has a way of doing it where they go on to a different link or
The
something.
county board is still working out bugs on that, because we actually tried it and it didn't work, so then we went into a different Zoom meeting to get people out of there.
Right. But if our situation gets worse and we are not allowed to participate as a group physically, I would like to make sure that the voting would be allowed even in closed session, if we can find a way, obviously, to do it safely.
And if we can, this policy allows us to remotely access during quasi-judicial functions after consultation with legal counsel. So the policy does permit us to do that.
Great, thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll start this vote with Ken.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Passes 9-0. Moving on, designation of official depositories.
I'm sorry, our official depository is the Adams Community Bank, a subsidiary of the Oregon Community Bank.
Is that the only one tonight?
Ronnie, unless there's something I don't know, we also sweep into the Wisconsin Trust when we have certain excesses of funds.
Yeah, because we've had Royal Bank and BMO.
So we need BMO, Oregon, and Royal. Is there any other? And the local government investment pool, that's what the motion needs to be. Is there a motion?
So
Kathy?
moved.
All right.
I'll second.
Joanne will second. Motion made by Kathy, second by Joanne to approve Royal Bank, Oregon Bank, BMO Harris Bank, and the Wisconsin Trust, correct, Rodney? The local government investment pool. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we'll start this vote with Jim.
Yes.
Lena,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. It passes 9-0. Designation of official newspaper.
The Times Reporter of Adams is our official newspaper.
Is there a motion for Times Report of Adams?
So moved.
I got Ken and Jim. Motion made by Ken, second by Jim for the official newspaper. Instead of going through the list, I'm just going to say all in favor say aye. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 9-0. Moving on, designation of official radio station.
Our official radio station is Wisconsin 106.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So ahead, Jim, second by Melissa. Again, discussion. The motion is made by Jim, second by Melissa, for local radio station is 106.1, correct? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. With that, this part of the agenda will adjourn. We will come back at 7 o'clock for the regular board meeting for the month of May. Thank you.
Two people have to log back in.
You ready, Tom?
Yes.
If I could get me undone here. At this time, I'd like to call the Adams Friendship Area
School board meetings to order for the month of May. Has a meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
If we all could rise for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Jeff and Joanne. Motion made by Jeff, second by Joanne to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it passes 9-0. Board of Education report. Anyone like to speak at this time? I guess I would like to, last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and it was too bad it wasn't this week, so we could have thanked all our teachers last week. But in that course, in the last month, I've been talking to many teachers and parents and kids of all grade levels, and I think the teachers have just done an outstanding job this past, in these past 6-7 weeks, and sometimes we forget them. Sometimes I also believe that we're actually developing some better communication between families because our teachers are reaching out and talking to kids and the parents and other things, that we should appreciate that even more in this time, and hopefully the next 3 weeks go as well as the last 7 weeks. So I'm glad that we have the teachers in our district we have, and you guys should all be proud of the work you've done. Any other board members like to speak? We'll go on to the next thing then. Because of the situation, we'd like to salute Ron Betcher for his years of service tonight, but we're going to actually bring him to a future board member when we can actually meet and talk to him and shake his hand and probably have cake. So, Ron, if you're out there tonight, congratulations for your years of service, but we'll be seeing you shortly at a future board meeting. Also, we have a new board member, Lucas Griffith. We'd like to welcome him to the board. And Lucas, you want to say anything or just a welcome?
Sure, yeah, no, I'm super excited. I'm glad to be here. It was not the circumstances I ever envisioned this meeting, but I'm really excited to work with everybody here and to really get to know everybody and to work for all the kids in the district. So, happy to be here.
Welcome, Lucas. With that, we're going to go on to the Grand Marsh report.
Mr. Gould.
Kind words to the staff too, because I have 3 items on my report tonight. I want to express to you, the board members, that our teachers have been on a very large learning curve and doing a terrific job using the non-traditional instruction environment that we're in right now. You know, we've been moving at lightning speed. It's really impressive. You have a lot to be impressed about. We moved from just virtual connections and making some phone calls and emails to, we've got instruction going on. Staff has reached out with materials, both physical materials in our handouts, but also all of their online resources, planning meetings, not only classroom meetings, but individual meetings. And talk about reaching out to parents. At Grand Marsh, several of the parents have sat with students, with their kids while the teacher's teaching, and been part of that classroom. And going above and beyond, they've also not only done it with one family, but if, say, we have a blended family or a split family, they do it for the second parent too. So it's been really good stuff that they're working on, and their Zoom lessons and all the things that they've planned and prepared in this short new learning environment that we've been in has been very impressive. And I want to tell you, I just wanted to give you some feedback. Grand Marsh had a 96% pickup rate with 100% delivery on the first time, and we're in the high 90s on the second pickup, and we're got almost all of the information out from the last one. So that's been going on with the blended learning. And if the teachers could, they showed me at my last staff meeting with them, because they're still doing staff meetings and grade level collaborations. They had some STEM work that kids were so proud to show off. They also sent them to me, so I get to see them too when the kids, they were a lot to brag about. Second item, GM is obviously closing after this school year. So our last drop off and the pickup of the personal items of the students, we plan on having some sort of a closure for our families and our students. So we've been planning that. There's more plans going to happen with that on Wednesday with our staff meeting to finalize some things that we're planning. Obviously, we can't have a big picnic or food or anything like that, but we'll have some special things as we wrap up our school year. And lastly, I just want to acknowledge Pat Sunderledge for all of her years of service to the Grand Marsh students, staff, and families. Congratulations, she's retiring at the end of the year. She spent 27 years in the district. She opened Grand Marsh in 1993 and she's closed it in 2020. So she is truly the heart and soul of that building. So I want to just congratulate her and let you know and thank her for that. And that's it for my report.
Rick?
Yep, I know. I'm having problems here. Oh, at this time, we'll go on to the AFP report.
Our teachers are working. It's just amazing for Brandy and I to sit in on grade level meetings or meet with our leadership team or the interventionists or the SPED meetings. And the amount of time that they are spending with students is amazing. They're running groups as much as they can, but a lot of them are meeting individually with students for 30 minutes, some in 45 minutes, an hour. They're coaching parents through technology, specifically sometimes just meeting with parents, especially our younger kids. They're teaching the parents how to teach the kids certain vocabulary or lessons. And it's just amazing to hear them talk and how much they miss the kids and wish that they were all together. They kind of, when we talk about what next year may look like, there's a lot of tears and choking up on what that might look like. But they are working amazingly hard. And when they're not meeting with kids or meeting with staff or meeting with Brandy and I, they are in our building looking at all the amazing work that has been turned in, checking it over, making comments, getting it ready to send back. And if they're not doing that, some of them are packing their rooms for cleaning and some are packing up to move their rooms. So they're in the buildings when they can be, doing all of that when they are not meeting with kids. And to echo Garrett with retirements, we have two amazing staff members at AFE that we will be losing. Ellen Walasek, after 34 years with the district, will be leaving us. She's not sure what she's going to do. She may be traveling a little bit, but I think she's going to try and be a grandma for a while. So she's excited, but still in the mix of things as a grade level chair, helping everybody out. Our other retirement we have is Isabel Carenta with 28 years in the district, serving our students, some of our bilingual students. She's been called upon a lot to help us out with some of that. And both of them will be dearly missed in the classrooms and in the halls. And we wish them the best of luck in whatever their future brings.
The board have any questions? Hearing none, we'll go on to middle school.
Thank you. I feel like I'm going to echo a lot of what both Garrett and Roxy had to say. At the building in the middle school, we've also been meeting professionally. We have grade level teams meeting, content area teams meeting, our building level committees working together. And then we have our district level team that's been meeting. And honestly, in the course of a day, you can have 4 or 5 meetings in a day at an hour apiece, and then you add in the lessons and the feedback to students. It really is a full day. A lot of what we talk about in those meetings are planning for the future. We're not planning for one schedule. We're working on a traditional schedule, but we're planning about what might come. So we have a Schedule B and a Schedule C that we're looking at for next year, just so that we can be prepared. We're also, a lot of our focus is ensuring our connectedness and our supports with our students and families. And really about what we've learned over this time. We kind of look forward to the end of this where we can get feedback from families, because it's certainly been a learning process. We know that initially our teachers said, all right, we didn't know how long this was going. They were going to be connecting with students every week. And then they started to learn new modes and what worked for different students. And that's what's really unique about this, is that what works for one student and family isn't what another student and family needs. So we're learning what everybody needs and trying to differentiate that way. And like they said earlier, some teachers are meeting one-on-one with students, some are meeting in whole groups. One group had 40 kids on one meet on Friday. So, and sometimes kids are just looking to get connected, right? They want to see their friends and their peers. The other thing is that since we've gotten our packets back, we also had an excellent turnout. And then whoever was not able to come, we delivered that material to them. Just today, we went through and everybody had everything turned in from the first 2 packets. We are between 75 and 80% where students are within from, like, if you looked at those grading, I know we're going to discuss it later today, but out that with our new grading rubric, that where they're at least at limited, sufficient, or exemplar. So there is a level of connectedness, and it may not be virtually. Our 5th and 6th grades say they're about 50% virtual attendance, which is pretty good. But those kids who are engaging otherwise, we're close to 80%. So we're really proud of our families and our teachers, and just how this has been a learning curve. People are exhausted, but we're up for the challenge, and we're proud of the good work that we're doing.
Board have any questions for Michelle? Hearing none, we'll go on to the high school.
Good evening. So just an update on graduation at this point. I know Tom will probably talk about it later too, but we are working on a virtual ceremony on the 2nd. Something I met with senior leadership last week on Friday, and we talked through some ideas on what they would like to see, and we're going to move forward with something that includes at least a picture and some post-secondary plans of each student in the graduating class, but we may also try to put something in that includes like students in their cap and gown with the turn of the tassel or something like that, so it's a little more personal. We'll talk about a July or August Plan B and Plan C dates to hold a traditional ceremony, which doesn't seem like it's going to be able to happen in July, but we hope to do something in August for the seniors, because we know this isn't how they expected to end their year or get their diplomas. And then as far as the coursework at the high school, similar to what has been discussed, I think a lot of the departments are using a mix of packet and text work, and then some virtual work. The classes that had the classroom were able to transition much more easily into this, but the classes in like the current technical education department, where students are taking those classes to get some hands-on experiences in woods and metals and food and art and things like that, they're getting much more reading than they thought they were. So, but still, the teacher projects in woods, for example, they're build a bench and take pictures of it and send it to Mr. Von Wald, and the same thing in foods and the other areas as well. So teachers, again, echo the learning curve was pretty steep with this for a lot of teachers, and they were the challenge. They're supporting students with meetings, they're putting in the lessons, they're adjusting as they can, and I'm really impressed with the work that they've done and connecting with the kids, trying to connect with those that don't want to be connected with, and keep pushing to get into those, break into those. Our special ed department is also being almost full days one-on-one with kids to support their needs and help them through the work as well. So incomplete policy, which will be talked about later. So students will be able to get credit at the high school for work that they've done, and keep working towards the graduation requirements, and we'll get a better feel for that at the end of the trimester here. One other thing we did, our staff chose 10 students each and wrote postcards each in the mail, and in reading some of those and making sure that every student has one. It was just really it showed that the strength of our staff is the relationship with the student, and relationship connecting. Many of the teachers had a personal connection with the students and were able to that up in their postcards. So I'm hoping that kids see that and at least puts a smile on their face for the day to know that their teachers are reaching out and caring about them. So that's it for the high school.
Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, we'll go on to Barbie, Director of Pupil Services.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about summer school for special ed students. As you can imagine, we're concerned about all students at this time, but especially our most struggling learners, which are often our special ed students. So at this time, the principals and I are working with the special ed staff to talk to all parents of special ed students to determine their interest over the summer to receive, to continue to receive special ed services. So we're looking forward to seeing how many families are interested and then what the staff will have be available to offer those services. In addition, the pupil services staff has been continuing to reach out with families and students and trying to meet their needs virtually. And lastly, I wanted to share my personal experience as a mom with two very different learners. One of my learners is very capable and can really kind of motivate her own learning. And her teachers have continued, though, to reach out with her whenever she's available and not watching our little list. And I have to say they've been amazing working around our schedule so I can have a Google Meet and they can teach her at the same time. And then I have another learner who has a little bit more difficulties learning, paying attention, and needs some special education. And I have been nothing but impressed. His regular ed teacher front loads him every day before the big group meeting to make sure that he is ready for class, and his special ed teacher is continually giving him services every day. Above all, I have been nothing but impressed as a parent of two very different students. And I just had to make sure you guys knew that as a mom, I'm a pretty happy woman. That's all I have.
Any questions for Barbie? Hearing none, we'll go on to Vicky, food service.
I wrote it up this time so I don't mess up.
Oh, she's got a turn on your mic.
Okay, sorry. Am I on?
Yep, you are on.
Okay, on March 16th, we were notified the school being canceled. And our first thought was, how are we going to feed our children, plus get rid of the product that we already had in our refrigerators and freezers? A meeting was called by Tom, including Stacy, Crystal, and myself. The question was, how do we do this? Stacy and Crystal created an opt-out form that was shared with parents. And the Boston Bus Company was contacted to see if they would be willing to work with us. And a plan came, was created. Boston was awesome, creating in-town routes within a week, which is normally several months is what they said. And on March 20th, we had 12 buses run routes and deliver over 1,300 breakfast and lunch meals. It was totally amazing. It was decided to deliver on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 routes each day, 2 breakfast and 2 lunch meals. And we do mailbox drop-offs, not to the house, not to the door, so that we really make that contact. It's been approved, it was approved by the USDA and DPI to operate it through the Summer Foods Program, and we're able to operate it through June 30th. In the beginning of April, we decided to split the routes into 6 routes on Tuesday, 6 routes on Thursday, delivering 4 breakfast and 4 lunch. And then on May 5th, we started delivering 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches. In the month of April, we delivered over 40,000 meals to over 600 households. It was truly a team effort. You might wonder how we can afford to supply these meals, and like I mentioned, it is on a reimbursable summer foods rate. Our normal breakfast is a reimbursable rate of $2.20 and lunch is $3.50, but the summer rates are $2.35 and lunch is $4.15. And again, we're approved to operate this way through June 30th. We have Tom and I, Stacy, Crystal, we all talked about this, and decided that we will maintain this through August, because Fund 50 is in a very favorable state, so that we could afford to do this if we don't get reimbursed. I do need to check with CPI to make sure that this is an allowable expense, because it's good for our children. I see no reason to. We are having a few challenges as far as getting some items from our vendors, and so that's an ongoing process. We have plenty of commodity items, so we can always offer the protein, which is some of the size we go with the protein. I can't thank the 8 kitchen personnel that started the program, and now we have 7 that are continuing to work with this, and they've put in some endless hours, including adding some teachers that have gone on routes, some paraprofessionals that have worked in the kitchen and routes, and the bus drivers. We have gone down to 10 buses and 2 of the school vans, the food service, and John Manuel's van. With CDC and Nurse Laura's recommendations, everyone is wearing face masks, wearing gloves, or using hand sanitizer on their faces. Please let me know if anyone has any questions.
Any questions for Vicki? Great job, you and your staff, Vicki. Thank you. Moving on, District Administrator report.
Just a lot of recognition and thank you this month. First of all, Vicki, thank you for that report. And again, the food service staff stepped up right away and filled a need that we had, an immediate need that we had to meet the nutritional needs of the students we serve. So thank you to that group. Next, our teaching staff. It's been mentioned, obviously, and I'm going to parallel what our principal said. We had a very steep learning curve as we moved to virtual, non-traditional instruction, and our staff, I think, has done an exceptional job, particularly when I have conversations with other administrators, and I hear what their engagement rate is in other districts, some very close to us, and our engagement rate in some cases is double what they're experiencing at all the levels. So that's been really positive to hear. So again, last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, so thank you very much to our teaching staff and our support staff as well, who help educate our kids on a daily basis. We're still working on 4K registration. Obviously, we weren't able to hold some of the traditional 4K experiences that we normally hold for our youngest learners, and we have a number that have already replied to our email inquiry. We're hoping that if you haven't registered for 4K yet, that you visit our website, click on the 4K registration button, and we'll get information from our staff to you right away. Summer school, we made the decision, unfortunately and reluctantly, but realistically, that our summer school experience is going to be virtual. We're hoping to provide both remedial kinds of instruction, but also some enrichment instruction online. And we're in the process of surveying our teaching staff to see what they might be interested in offering our students. So it's going to be very different, a very different type of summer school experience. And what you need to know is that those students that we serve in summer school experiences add to our third Friday count in September. So we're anticipating that that's going to have somewhat of a financial impact. We just aren't anticipating potentially attracting as many students as we normally would, plus the virtual online. There might be smaller groups that we normally serve. So we're in the process of exploring what that looks like and what that means for us as a district. We're still trying to work on recognizing and honoring the class of 2020. Obviously, this is a very unusual spring, and those students haven't necessarily been able to experience the traditional ceremonies that mark the graduation event and other activities. So we're looking at a July date. We'll share that very soon. That's probably, again, not very realistic. And we're looking at another date in August. And hopefully we can have something a little bit more traditional at that time. Okay, pardon me. In the next few weeks, we're going to be surveying our families and older students and teaching staff about what's worked well during our non-traditional instruction and any barriers that we need to address in order to do a better job of this. And finally, the state is asking us, as we think about starting the school next year, to create 3 different scenarios. The first scenario would be a normal start, where our students enter our building in full classes, and that obviously would be the ideal. That's what we're hoping for. The second scenario is a split scenario, where we would start with our kindergarten staff, our students, divide them in half, and then all older siblings would follow. Then you move up to 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and it's easier to divide elementary and 5th and 6th grade classes than it is in half than it is for our students that are in 7th through 12th grade. Because of the transitions that 7th through 12th graders make, we could divide the buildings in half. But I'd like you to understand that the classes might not be divided completely in half. So we'd have half the students in the building, but you might see in 1 hour a class of 14 students, and in another hour a class of 6 students. Again, because we would try to honor the younger siblings first and place older students with their younger siblings. And then the third scenario would be to continue with completely non-traditional instruction. And so we're hoping to look at the survey results that we obtain from our older students, families, and staff, and try to continue to do a better job. If we start online, it's going to have to be a much more traditional experience than we were able to provide this spring. So online with more traditional grades, more traditional credit generation, and those kinds of things. So it's going to require some effort on behalf of all of us. There you go.
Is there any questions for Tom? Go ahead, Kathy.
Could you explain again the split? I didn't quite understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you think about splitting schools in half, you start with the younger students first, the youngest students first. So you would divide our kindergarten classes, and then all the older siblings associated with those students would follow on the same split. So you might have a Monday, Thursday group and a Tuesday, Friday group with alternating Wednesdays. There's a number of different scenarios, but students would only half of the students would be in any building at any given time. We'd still run the same number of bus routes because they're trying to keep less kids on the buses. But that's kind of what you would do. And you have to start with the younger students because there might be potential child care issues in families. And the issue that I explained at the end is if you're dividing, we could have half of the students in the high school, but because they're making transitions throughout the day, the classes probably wouldn't be split 50%, 50%. You might have a class one day with 14 students followed by a class the next day with 7. We'd have half the kids in the building, but it's difficult at the high school to divide a building in half and still meet the credit needs of all the students we serve.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lucas.
Do we need to consider or explore any IT infrastructure investments if we are working virtually? I know that those projects can take months to implement, so I'm just wondering if we're already kind of started.
Yes, we're talking about a number of potential IT investments. We're talking about purchasing some more devices to ensure that all students have a device in their hands to help facilitate. And Ronnie and I talked today about hotspots. And we were even looking at, what would it cost us per month if we had to purchase 200 hotspots for families that didn't have access to the internet, 300. And those are sizable expenses. But they're an equity issue across our district. And you're aware of our district, you're aware of our large geographic area, you're aware of the barriers that certain families have to internet access. Either it's not available to them, or it's really cost prohibitive. So we started to have those conversations. But it would require, it's a good question, it would require probably some investment in technology.
Thank you.
Lana?
Do we have a count of the students that don't have internet? And then do we have any record of students coming to the high school and using the internet here?
I think that's been very sparse. I don't know what the exact numbers are of students that have been able to use our internet hotspots. It's interesting. We make very few copies of paper from any of our offices. So almost all of our families have access to the internet in one form or another. The issue that we need to discover and address is usable internet. So internet access off a phone isn't necessarily usable internet for some learning activities that we're trying to push out to our students. So we don't have a really accurate count of usable internet compared to access to internet.
Is there any more questions for Tom? Hearing none, we'll move on to the social media report.
Okay, this is always an interesting thing to look at on an annual basis or on a monthly or quarterly basis. And you'll see through the first quarter of the year on the first page the number of Facebook likes that we saw in our district, and approaching 2,600. You can see how many people on Facebook we reach during the week, and it's varied. Obviously, around Valentine's Day you get a big spike. Then it kind of tends to tail off. And on the second page, you get a summary of our enrollment, the number of Facebook weekly, or people that we reach on a weekly basis, the number of likes that we receive on a weekly basis, the posts that we put out per day, the number of Instagram followers we have, and the number of Twitter followers that we have. So I always like to share this information. We're utilizing a service to help social media for schools, to help us not only formulate social media, but also provide us with this kind of report. And it's interesting to see our district compared to some of our neighbors of similar size and where we fall, primarily at Facebook. It's obviously our largest social media presence, but looking at how we compare to others on Facebook, I always find interesting on a quarterly basis.
Is there any questions for Tom on this subject? Hearing none, we'll move on. Public comment and subject to final action at the reorganization meeting for temporary repeal. We've already done that, correct, Tom? Yes. So we'll move on. Is there anyone that needs to adjourn the closed session at this time for the consent agenda only? Is there any reason to go to closed session? Is there any reason to go to closed session? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Lena? Motion made by Jim, seconded by Lena to approve the consent agenda. On the consent agenda tonight, there's a higher recommendation for Garrett Gould, a higher recommendation for Kathleen Gitkin, resignation of Christina Brewer, paraprofessional, meeting minutes from the last board meeting, donations. Stacy, could you read that?
It is, yes.
We received
An anonymous donation to the food service department in the amount of $930.79.
And also West Rock has donated boxes for our school closings.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to recognize West Rock donated another 300 boxes to the school district today. That didn't make it on this particular agenda, but that obviously helps us particularly when we're moving classrooms and vacating a building. So thank you from the district, thank you very much to them. And then also almost $1,000 donation to help erase lunch accounts from a single individual. It's very generous, and we will appreciate that anonymous donation as well.
Thank you. And finally, on consent agenda, the main bills. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Moving on to old business, Copason request for compensation. Todd?
Our bus provider is still looking for some kind of compensation during this time period. As you're aware, next year our contract will require us to pay 55% of our transportation bill, regardless of whether the buses are rolling or not. I do want to recognize Copason. They were able to create bus routes for our food service program literally within a couple of days. It was, Vicki said a week, but it was really a few days, and so that was very impressive. They're exceptional partners to us. They're oftentimes the first people that our students see in the morning and the last person that represents the school district in the afternoon. However, that being said, I will tell you at this point in time that our legal counsel is recommending to us that we just wait and see what happens with some of the grant programs out there that might be beneficial to the bus company.
Questions or discussion with Tom? Hearing none, we'll go to new, oh, I'm sorry, Len.
I'm trying to unmute. So right now, if school starts with the students at home, we would have to pay 55% starting at the school year.
It actually would start July 1, and when the contract rolls over at the end of June. So July 1st, that's the contract we would be entered into. And the interesting thing about that is, and Ronnie and I have looked at this and talked to some of our colleagues, there are many school districts around us. We were very frustrated that we were basically providing them with 55%. I will tell you there are districts around us that are 85 and 90%. In their contract. So we didn't feel great when we signed into that contract, but in hindsight, it's actually a very competitive contract compared to some of the contracts other districts have entered into.
So Tom, what do we do on days if we start virtual and we keep feeding kids? Do we take that money away from that total per month?
No, we're paying for the services that we're utilizing.
I'm talking about for next year, under the new contract.
Yeah, we would probably pay 55% of what we would traditionally pay, and probably only be using, well, I think they're using about 10 buses a week rather than the 20 plus that we use every day.
We wouldn't have to pay extra though.
No, we wouldn't.
Okay. Is there any other questions for Tom concerning this matter? Hearing none, we'll go on to new business, pay differential for kitchen managers and cooks.
We'd like you to take a look at this. Really, the people whose lives changed very dramatically when we moved from traditional instruction to non-traditional instruction was our kitchen staff. Our kitchen managers and cooks had to instantly go above and beyond what they do on a daily basis. Obviously, our teaching staff had to change what they were doing. Our support staff had to change what they were doing. But the way we provided food service was an incredible challenge that these individuals rose up to meet. And Ronnie and Vicki and I have had numerous conversations about how to recognize their efforts. And what we're asking for is a pay differential right now of $3 an hour for our kitchen staff. And you will see, if you look at the spreadsheet that Ronnie's developed, you'll see what that would cost us in total, what that means for those individual people. And I would encourage you to approve that tonight. I usually don't say that to board members, but I believe these people need to be recognized in a different way at this point in time.
Is there a motion for that? I got Joanne and Chuck to approve the, motion made by Joanne, second by Jeff, to approve the pay differential for kitchen managers and cooks as listed. Questions? Go ahead, Kathy.
Was this discussed during negotiations that time? Okay.
No.
I was just trying to recall what we had.
No, this is not negotiations for wages beginning next school year. This is something that we'd like to do at this point in time for our kitchen managers and cooks.
Okay. Because I didn't recall that when we met for negotiations.
It was not.
So this is a separate
Correct.
entity, and it will be for this time period, but it will continue through, or just a stipend?
No, it's Vicki and or Ronnie. What are the parameters on the time associated with this? You're going to have to turn your mics on, Vicki, if you're going to talk.
This will be for March 16th through May 28th. So the time that they worked above and beyond.
Okay, thank you.
So we really should put that inside of that motion also. So Joanne and Jeff, are you okay with that? So this pay differential will be from March 16th through May 28th? All right, through May 28th, so that's part of the motion also. Is there any more discussion? We'll do a roll call vote on this one. We'll start this vote with Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Lennon,
Yes.
and my vote is yes, it passes 9-0.
Thank you.
All right, going on to the next new business is change to AFB Principal Contract.
And this is interesting because I think this policy hasn't been necessarily addressed consistently over time, but we have a policy. It's in our administrative guidelines. It's administrative guideline 3124C, and C1 of that particular guideline states that all building principals will be 12-month employees. It also says that the business manager, district administrator, and director of student services be 12-month employees. Assistant principals, it says below, will be 210-day contracts. This has been a guideline that's been in existence since 1999. I don't think it's been addressed since then, but we're recommending at this time that Roxanne Irie's contract be moved from a 210-day contract with a summer school separate contract to a 12-month, 260-day contract like the rest of our building principals and some of our district office administrative staff.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. Second? Melissa? Motion made by Jim, seconded by Melissa to move the AFE principal's contract from her current contract with summer school to a 260-day contract. Discussion. Kathy?
Again, I have a slow computer here to turn that. My question is, will she get an additional summer school contract with that?
No, that's a good question. And really what we're doing is we're taking those two contracts and rolling them into one. So there isn't a pay differential. It's just kind of a recognition of the work that she does year round.
Okay, thank you.
So she'll still be managing the summer school program, but without that second contract.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll start this with a roll call. Also, we'll start this vote with Melissa.
Yes.
Lucas.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Joanne.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Lena.
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And my vote is yes, it passes 9-0. Moving on to 2020-2021 staff wages and salary. I'm going to let Kathy report on this. She was at negotiations.
What?
We talked about this, if you remember.
Control D.
Correct. I think Ronnie can help you as well.
I think
if you
she's
would like
going to
some
help. Sort of a surprise, people. My microphone lags behind. I do control delete, control delete. Oh, Ron. This was the first time I was asked to serve on the negotiation committee, and it was very interesting to me because I came in with a wide open mind. I had no idea how this was going to even run. But what the big thing that I took away from the meeting was, for years we had clumped together an entire group of people and called it the administration team. And we have just done it forever. And it was advised that we should no longer do that. That unless you have an administrative contract, you should not be called an administrator. So consequently, we divided up these staff members and they became managers, administrators, health professionals, confidential staff, support, and professional staff. And then that was one of my big aha moments, big takeaway. Then we looked at the different contracts and it was discussed about what kind of a raise would be implemented for this year. And take it away, Ronnie.
Is she going to take it away?
I believe so.
Brian's got to turn on mic.
Ronnie, we can't hear you yet.
There we go. Thanks, guys. Just so everyone knows, the consumer price index was 1.81% this year. So we looked at the support staff and we factored in a 1.81% increase, and we spread it out evenly. And so what would happen with that is that everyone would get a 30-cent raise in that group. And that group consists of the food service, the custodians, the maintenance, groundskeepers, school building secretaries, and the paraprofessionals. And then, Tom, do you want to mention the additional?
Sure. Yes, there are two individuals that we're recommending because of their responsibility and work that they do, that they receive more than the CPI increase. One would be the lead custodian at the high school, and the second would be the kitchen manager at the middle school.
Factored in those raises also, the total support staff raise would be 2.2%.
So we'll go these one at a time. So if somebody would like to make a motion for the support staff wages for 2021, I will take that motion now. Melissa? Is there a second? Kathy? Motion made by Melissa, by Kathy to, for the support staff wages and salaries for 2020 and 2021. Discussion. Go ahead, Jeff.
So what's the total effect on our budget just for that particular group per year, dollar amount wise?
29,700.
I have a comparison, the CISA board met, and they're a little bit higher than that totally for their support staff wages, just so you know. I think that this is a fair wage. It wouldn't have went over, we have to give a 1.81, so this doesn't, those added, put them to the 2.0 that we're talking about. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll start this vote with Lucas.
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Ken?
Abstain.
Jim?
Yes.
Lana?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
My vote is yes. 8-0 with 1 abstention. Moving on to Ronnie, confidential staff.
We took and added that up and again, distributed it evenly at a 1.81%, and that worked out to be 34 cents per hour. And then we have a Fine Arts Center director, and we are not sure quite where to put that because it's part-time. And so in the past, we have also given the same raise to him that we give to the confidential staff.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion for confidential staff? Joanne and Jim? Motion made by Joanne, second by Jim for the 2020-2021 staff wages and salaries for confidential staff. Discussion. Go ahead, Jeff.
Same question, what's the gross amount? I'm gonna ask this question over and over, so.
I'll have Ronnie, you heard that, would you tell the dollar amount
For the budget every time?
Yes, the total increase in the confidential with the Fine Arts Center director is $3,782.
Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll start this vote with Jeff.
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
And Lucas?
Yes.
My vote is yes, it passes 9-0. Moving on to professional staff.
Which one was it? Professional?
Professional.
Okay. The professional staff was factored in at a 1.81% increase, again, distributed evenly. That turned out to be $883 per staff member. And then in addition, this year we are hoping to give teachers that begin their 3rd year, their 6th year, their 9th year, their 12th year, their 15th year, 18th year, 21st year, 24th year, 27th, 30th, and 33rd year would receive an additional $1,000. And that is to try, well, Tom can explain that. The total package for the professional staff is 2.24%, and the total dollar amount is $135,496.
Tom, would you go ahead and explain the scale that we talked about in the negotiation?
Yeah, absolutely. What we're trying to do is provide our teaching staff with a visual pathway that's at least as competitive as our neighbors. You're very aware, all of you, that over the last 2 years, we've turned over almost 60 professional staff members, which isn't good for our students, isn't good for our community, certainly not good for the history of our organization, and we need to turn that tide. It is not helping our continuity and outcomes by having that level of turnover. That level of turnover is actually frightening. We've been meeting with a group of teachers throughout the year. We titled it the Teacher Recruitment and Retention Group. I invited every teaching staff member in the district to join that conversation, and had a lot of conversation about trying to make our compensation model a little bit more progressive, and again, being more competitive with our neighbors, so we don't lose people for compensation reasons over time.
Go ahead, Lucas.
So I missed, is it a one-time $1,000 every time you hit that mark, or is it added onto their salary?
It would be added into their base, so over time, and Ronnie has that calculated out over time. Certain years it would be up to $30,000 potentially, if not more than that, as more people hit that 3-year mark. So as we project out, because we had 30 new staff members last year alone, when they hit that 3-year mark, plus anyone else that would be in a multiple of 3 would get that raise, it's going to be a pretty steep or significant increase on those years. Other years it'll be very little. Anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 is what we're looking at, depending on the year.
Okay.
I think that we have to keep in mind as board members is our current referendum is about teacher retention and spending that money to retain some teachers. So I think this is one of the first good steps I've seen where we, as we go along, teachers can understand what they can make if they stay within our district. So.
I have one more comment or question. Was there any consideration into ramping up that, kind of bonus or wage increase the longer the year? So maybe, at a 15-year mark, it's 2,000 or something like that.
That's interesting that, what we found, and again, I value our senior teachers tremendously, the people that have made commitment to our district for 15 years, 20 years, 30 plus years. Those are the folks that have the institutional history of this place. They're interwoven and interdigitally connected into the community. But what we find is that keeping people here through that 5th year mark tends to keep people here forever. So if those individuals at the beginning of their career can kind of visualize that and say, okay, here's where I might be if I stay in Adams long term, we believe that'll have lasting impact. But I do value, I want to make sure that, one of the things, and Ronnie, I had a lot more of this money when we initially started talking about it, loaded on the younger teachers, and Ronnie came up with a scenario of even providing people that have been here at the 33-year mark with some kind of longevity increase. So hopefully that's enticing enough to keep people here. And there are very few teachers in our district right now that would have aged out of that opportunity. Very few.
So I'm looking for a motion for the professional staff wages. Jeff?
Second.
Lena? Motion made by Jeff, second by Lena for the 2020-2021 professional staff wages and salary. Discussion. Hearing none, we're going to start this vote with Joanne.
Yes.
Ken?
Abstain.
Jim?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And my vote is yes, it passes 9-0. Health professionals.
We've created the health professional information, and we have that available for you tonight. Ronnie and I have had some preliminary discussions. Again, this, at one point in time, the Adams Friendship School District had over 20 people with administrative contracts. And really, the only people that should have had administrative contracts were people that had administrative licenses recognized by the DPI. And so this is a group that's in 99, I'm going to go out on a limb, but in the vast, vast majority of school districts across the state of Wisconsin are grouped with teachers. Yes, they've got a differentiated role. And because the professional staff has longevity increases built in, we'd like you to hold off on a decision regarding that small group of health professionals right now. And we'd like to bring that back to you next month if possible.
So we're going to table the health professionals for until next month? Okay, we'll bring that back next month. Managers.
Distributed evenly for $1,034 apiece, and the total of that was $33,102.
Is there a motion? Ted? Is there a second? Melissa? Motion made by Kent, seconded by Melissa for the 2020-2021 managers' wages and salaries. Questions? Hearing none, we'll start this vote with Kent.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And my vote is yes, it passes 9-0. Administrators?
Administrative salary is a 1.81% package distributed evenly to all others than the district administrator, who has elected not to take his increase this year and to spread it out to the other administrators. So each administrator would get $1,789. The total package would be $16,102, and the base salary that was used for the AFE elementary principal was the 260-day contract, which contained both of her contracts for the AFE elementary principal salary and the summer school director.
Is there a motion? Joanne? Is there a second? Kathy? Motion made by Joanne, second by Kathy to approve the 2020-2021 administrators' wages and salary. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll start this vote with Kent.
Abstain?
Jim?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And my vote is yes, it passes 9-0. Moving on, proposed material pickup and drop off for Thursday, May 21st, 2020.
We've had a lot of conversation about this, and the Thursday, May 21st date is a week before our school would have ended this school year. It would give us an opportunity to collect materials from our students and also distribute personal belongings for a number of our students that have been in desks and lockers and cubbies. And then we'd allow that material to sit over the Memorial Day weekend before teachers, which we've been doing before teachers would be able to collect that for some kind of final assessment. What we would plan to do, and Crystal Holmes has been meeting with a group of teachers, what we would do for the 3 days that we would have had instruction after Memorial Day is provide some social emotional learning opportunities for all of our students at all levels. So we do have a group of people that are working on that. I can't tell you exactly what it would be, but they would be activities to try to meet the mental health needs of the students that we're serving and try to provide some connection and motivation for them as they enter into the summer.
Any questions for Tom? Hearing none, we'll move on to grading high school, middle school, elementary, and preliminary budget report. Tom?
Sure. Kevin, can you start at the high school and just kind of walk people through? There's a handout in the packet that's linked.
Sure. So at the high school, we created guidelines for teachers that will help them get a pass, determine if a student passes, doesn't pass, and then they would receive an NC or no credit on the transcript, or they could get an incomplete if they showed some effort so far, just need more time or possibly internet access or something like that. They could continue to work through at least the first part of the year, and we haven't determined the final date yet until we know the calendar for sure for next year, but we're looking at around the mid-trimester or progress report time of the first trimester. So students would have that time to complete if they got an incomplete. If they pass, if they earn a passing grade, they're done, they earn credit. If they haven't engaged, haven't done work, haven't handed in work, they would receive a no credit. Then each teacher was responsible for outlining what that would mean, and they sent that off to their students and parents so that students would know what they had to do. Sometimes it might have been, it included connecting with the teacher, so responding to emails as well as completing the work. Not many of them had a percentage that students actually had to complete. So a little bit different than the other two levels, but we have to help students earn the credit that's required.
We better give him a hot spot.
He's frozen.
Mr. Moore, you're frozen in space, and we did actually provide a hot spot
Oh, really?
for the Moore household. It's again, it's an area where we're struggling, and it's typical of a lot of places across our school district. Are you there, Kevin, or no?
Let's just move on.
I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me though.
Oh, can you hear me?
I do have a question.
What?
There's some questions, Kevin.
Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, this is Luke. A question that I have, and I have one for each of the principals, so you guys are going to get sick of me. For the high school ones, is the pass fail or the pass no pass affect GPAs and college credits?
Lucas, we couldn't hear you. You're going to have to repeat the question.
Kathy, I don't know if your mic on or off. It was picking something up.
You're on. Go ahead with your question again, Lucas.
Okay, we good now? Sorry. So Kevin, my question is, does the pass no pass affect GPAs? And I'm thinking about college admissions and things like that.
Good question. Can you guys hear me now?
Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me now?
All right, I'll try that again. I'll try that again. On my computer on. So yeah, GPAs will not be affected at all for this trimester. So that was another part of it. So the pass, no pass, students' GPA would have been frozen at second try. And some school districts, you might hear some school districts that are able to keep their or they froze GPA at third quarter. We only had 8 days before the trimester was ended to our school was closed, so that's the reason for it. So that's the reason.
There's two of them in there.
You have a hamster in there.
Now I can do it.
Is there other questions for Kevin? Hearing none, go on. Hearing no other questions for Kevin, we're moving on to the middle school.
Okay, thank you. So at the middle school, we had a lot of discussion because we really wanted to represent. We're certainly not working for credit at the middle school level, as you understand. But what we were hoping to do with everything that we're doing is to continue to promote skill development and engaging experiences. So as we reflected on this, we really wanted to see kind of what it was that we were getting back from students and the level of engagement. And it really varies from family to family. As you guys know, with some of the supports we're giving, a family will say it's absolutely what they need, what their experience is very positive. Another family might feel overwhelmed with the amount of work that we're giving, and another family might feel that it isn't enough. So it's really relative to an individual family's experiences that they're having at home as well. So when we did this, we had a lot of discussion, first in small grade level and content area teams, and then as a whole group. And we ended up coming up with a blend of what we feel is it's representing engagement, but it's also representing the learning that the student is, so that the description is really critical. If you're going to look at that. When you look at AFE, they have the report card. We have a similar report card, but the comments that are going to go into that report card in terms of the content area that we're reporting on will reflect that minimal engagement, limited engagement, sufficient, or exemplar. The description is the part that's really important. And you'll notice that the onus is not put on the student, but we are owning, our efforts to try and connect with our students. We recognize a student. We had one teacher say, I didn't think the student was engaged. I was struggling. I was calling all the time. I wasn't connecting. Their phone number wasn't in order. And I didn't think they were engaged. And then they got the packet back, and the packet was complete. It was well done. They did an excellent job, and you could see that they put a lot of effort into it. So a student like that is certainly needing sufficient engagement. They've completed their packet, but they're unable to attend the Google Meets or those sessions that are online. So we're just trying to make sure that we're meeting the diverse needs of all of our families and understanding the circumstances that they're in. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're looking at what our report card needs to look like next year, whether it's a non-traditional instruction, kind of an AB kind of day, or our dream of going back to the way it used to be. So, I know, Lucas, you said you had a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to ask it, but are the descriptions, the report says like minimal efforts, are those set in stone?
We did share them with families. At this point, we did hem and haw all over our words as well. Whether we'd use engagement or limited, we really worked at trying to come up with some language there. I know it probably could be picked apart, and somebody might have different opinions on it.
I'm good. That's all I need.
Is there any more questions for Michelle? Hearing none, we'll move on to the elementary. Oh, I'm sorry, Len.
Waiting for my microphone to go.
You're in.
Okay. Just wanting to double check. So if a student doesn't have access to like the internet or even the phone, let's say they only have a cell phone and if their parents work, so can they still get exemplary work even though they aren't able to connect? Like, is there a way that it can be checked?
They certainly could have exemplar engagement. In that a lot of teachers, I know, like Lena, if you look at like your experience, what you're probably having with your son, there's extra like engagement activities in there as well, beyond the minimal. So there's certain things that kids can do to demonstrate that. We find though right now that a lot of our kiddos who you can tell those kids who are working for that exemplar, you can see them, they are doing everything they can to reach out to us if we can't get connected. Teachers are using texting, there's so many different ways that they're trying to. And a lot of the things that what our kids have learned is that they can attend some of these meetings if they have a phone. It doesn't have to be virtual. They can call in. And as our kids learn the systems, a lot of them are coming to the table even, just because they are looking for that interaction. But certainly, yeah, there's opportunities for them to get exemplar.
Okay.
Is there any more questions for Michelle? Moving on, elementary schools.
So Michelle already pointed out for you to kind of look at our report card. Brandy and I sat in with the middle school grade level meeting and then took what they were going to use to our school improvement team, which is our grade level chairs, and had conversations about the wording and those kinds of things. And we are going to use the same wording as the middle school, just for some consistency for our families. We've also sent it out to our families with a few questions coming back. Our teachers just are concerned that we're not, quote unquote, grading our parents, because right now for the young kids, that's really what it seems like. How does a 5-year-old get on a Zoom meeting all by themselves if the parent isn't available? So that's been our teacher's biggest concern, is that we don't want to be grading the parents. So our thought is we can put those engagement criteria in for the math, the literacy, the writing, but then on the bottom add comments just regarding, we know that you've been working really hard, we've seen some work coming back, so just adding more positive comments in that section on the bottom. But we're going to do very similar to the middle school as well.
Lucas, you have a question?
You mentioned my question. I wanted to make sure that there was some similar vocabulary being used by all the teachers, so it sounds like that's the case. So I'm good.
Is there any more questions for Roxanne? Go ahead, Tom.
I just like to make an observation, not necessarily for Roxanne, but the high school is a different animal because of the credit issue. That doesn't necessarily exist at the elementary and middle school levels. So it's, that's why it's difficult to make the high school an apples to apples comparison. So even though the graduation requirements were waived for the class of 2020, we're still trying to keep the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors on track for graduation as we move forward.
I don't know. I wanted to say we do have some students at the middle school who are taking high school courses, so when they're in that course.
Michelle's talking, Alex, we can hear it.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify that we do have some course accelerated students who are taking courses at the high school, so then they would fall under, because it is a credit-based course, they do fall under the high school course. So if I'm a 8th grader taking geometry, I'm going to be graded under that that standard, okay, on the incomplete or pass or fail.
Thanks for that distinction. I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, my question about high school students then struggling, will they be given an opportunity in summer school to be able to catch up? We're not talking about the class of 2020, but we're talking about any of the rest that are trying to take classes and aren't meeting the mark.
Yeah, we anticipate the high school summer experience offering that credit recovery option, and we're hoping that we can entice kids to do that through a virtual environment.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Lana.
Okay. My question is for the high school also. If a student, I'm just wondering if there's any thought about this. If a student needed this class that they're taking right now, will they be able to take it over if they feel in school would be differently? Like maybe it's a skill that they can perform, or maybe it's an important math class that it's not quite to the rigor
Kevin, can you address that, or are you still struggling with technology? Excuse me?
I think she was muted.
She was, yeah, she didn't have her speaker on.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Donna didn't have her speaker on, but the question was, if a student is in, let's just say, geometry, and they feel that they're gonna need those skills as they move through high school and progressive math classes, would there be an option for those students to take a geometry in a more traditional environment when we resume school, whenever that might be?
Yep, that's a good question. So our counselors know, they're building the master schedule right now, and they know that we may have to make some modifications once grading is done. So we may have a group that needs that geometry B section prior to an algebra 2 section that they start. So we'll try to front load that first semester, our first trimester next year if we can. The other thing we'll do for a lot of the kids, or any kid that doesn't get credit but wants the class, or even gets the credit if it's a CTE class and they want to get the credit, we'll allow them to take that class again because they didn't really get the experience of that class. So we're going to be flexible as much as we can with the schedule, but we also have to build a master schedule now. We can't wait until June and July. So we're kind of stuck in between two spots right now, but we'll try to be as flexible as we can for students.
Is there any other questions on this matter? Hearing that, we're going on to preliminary budget report.
Ronnie, I'll let you walk your way through that.
Thank you. Back in February, we presented the Baird model to you, and at that time it had $178,000 in the hole for the 2021 school year. Since that meeting, you guys have elected to close down Grand Marsh. We've also elected to add 4K all day. And so right now I am presenting the next Baird model that is a positive $300,910 at this time for next year. And I just want you to know what is in there. All the salaries have been updated to what you guys approved tonight. Also, with the Grand Marsh closing, we eliminated 2 teaching positions, even while adding 2 teachers to 4K. We eliminated 1 administrative position. We eliminated 1 secretarial position. We eliminated 1 custodial position. In this proposal, we eliminated 1 bus route. We have reduced the utilities and custodial supplies, and we eliminated the 4K rural unlimited contract that used to be for the 4K at their place. And in the only increase we had is I did increase the curriculum budget $100,000 with the plan of adding 4K through 8 math curriculum next year. So at that time with those things, this budget is being presented to you. We're going to act like everything's normal and we don't have a shutdown. And so what that entails is that the revenue cap can go up to $10,000 with a $179 increase, and that special ed will get 30% reimbursement from the state. And one of the things when this has all started is because we don't know, they said it's okay to start with the normal and then maybe run a couple of scenarios to let people know what might happen if they took away some of those things I just said that is in this budget yet.
So just so you're aware, we'll be presenting some other scenarios when we meet in June that are they're gonna look much different and much more grim than this picture. Right now, the state is anticipating a tremendous decrease in the revenues that they generate, and We don't know right now how that's going to impact school districts across the state of Wisconsin. The other thing that I want to point out is you move across the years, if you look at the surplus deficit line that is in the black through 2020-21 next year, starts to go into the red in 2021-2022, and then falls pretty quickly as we move out in the future after that. And one of the things that Ronnie and I have been talking about is be prepared unless something drastically changes at the state level regarding the school funding formula to go to operational referendum in the fall of 2022. So 2 short years from now, we're going to need an infusion of cash from the public if we're going to continue to provide the same level of services to our students and families that we're providing today.
I will say one of the things we talked about was possibly going to short-term borrowing, because they talked about pushing the taxes collection back October 1st. That's by county basis, and I was in a meeting the other day where our county right now is not going to allow that right now, that we're going to stay at the July 28th, so that would help our budget if we continue with that pace. So I thought we should talk about that. Jeff?
As much as I like to be optimistic, I think this budget is a pipe dream. I mean, realistic, our pupil counts are not going to be there. We are not going to have summer school. We've already said that the participation rate is 4. That is going to be a huge revenue loss for us this year. We're going to lose families because of the economics, the simple fact that we don't have jobs in the Dells, we don't have jobs in Rapids. People are going to be moving to where the jobs are. It is worst case scenario. The governor's already looking at 5% reduction in revenue tax-wise. I think that is a pipe dream itself. 5% is unrealistic. It's going to be more than that. We're already at worst case scenario, and we need to plan that. And that's going to affect the quality of service that we give to our students ultimately. I don't want that to be a surprise to the public and go, well, what happened? I mean, we had a budget, forecast in May that was all roses and smelled really good. No, it's not going to smell good. And it's not going to be as rosy as it's going to be. I know, Dr. Wormuth, you're going to do your best to try to deliver the same quality of services. Obviously, that's the commitment of this board, and no doubt that all of us are here to make sure that our children receive a quality education. But here's the other caveat to that, and I talked about this the last meeting, is the quality of education that we are currently delivering to our students now affects our future. Watch TV. What's on TV right now? I have never seen so many commercials for, guess what? Remote learning. And it's not through us, it's through somebody else. We have talked about this way too long. We need to have a program in place come this fall that we offer virtual learning to our kids if they want it. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It can't be, we're going to do the best that we can. Again, it goes back to the quality. If we want those students to stay with us, we need to have that program in place and ready to run. Because we don't know what it's going to look like come September 1 when school starts back up. If we have that already, we can utilize that resource to teach our kids and integrate it in with our existing staff. So, as a board member, pipe dream, I want reality. I want to see something come next month with what the reality is truly going to be. Plus, add on the fact that we just gave our staff over $200,000 in raises, and now it will be part of our yearly budget totally deserve it. They work hard for our students. Public-wise, I don't know how the public's gonna take that, because I can tell you in the private sector, they're taking pay cuts, they're taking furloughs, the federal money's not coming. These are the realities of the families that are not, they don't work for the school district. They work for the private sector. And those are the realities that we have to face. And again, this is where we rise to the occasion.
And I agree with you completely. We know that this budget is probably not as accurate as it should be. We haven't gotten any kind of direction. We haven't been provided any kind of direction from the state right now. So it's very frustrating for us to plan with a lot of unknowns. Usually by this time, it's relatively solidified. We move forward. We get final numbers in the fall, but we're in the ballpark. We really don't even know where the ballpark is right now. My goal right now from a budget perspective is to try to ensure that we don't have to go back to referendum before the current referendum expires. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do that or not. So I want the public to be aware of that as well. At the same time, the raises to our staff, it's one of those issues where we can't afford to do it, but we can't afford not to do it. It's particularly challenging. And we'll ramp up. I heard that word maybe recently. We'll ramp up our work on trying to provide virtual instruction. We have a number of our students, over 20, I believe, that open enroll from the Adams district into another district near Madison that just buys a commercial program to run virtually. And we think we can do that better with some in-person instruction as well. So thank you for the comments.
Is there other comments on this topic? Are there other comments with this topic? Hearing none, we'll move on. Consider adjournment to closed section 8.1. Contemplate closed session per section 19.851C Wisconsin statute for an update regarding the employment status of a business grounds transportation director, including the review or performance evaluation data. Is there so moved? Joanne, Jeff? Motion made by Joanne, second by Jeff to move to closed session. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're going to closed session. At this time, 5 minutes to use the bathroom or whatever. We're going to meet behind the library in the old theater room, and we'll go from there.